Welcome to Pathways of Blessings Network. We are delighted to have you join us today. In this video, we present a profound and uplifting message from one of the world's most dedicated, spirit-filled, and powerful ministers. This sermon is designed to inspire your faith, deepen your understanding of God's Word, and encourage your walk with Christ. So, settle in, open your heart, and prepare to be richly blessed by this transformative message. Enjoy and let the blessings flow.
There's a man who gave free bread for 3 years, and the day he couldn't, they cursed him. There's a woman who raised children who don't call unless they need money. There's an employee who stayed late every night and got passed over for promotion. And there's you reading this right now, knowing exactly who's been taking advantage of your goodness. You feel it in your gut. That person who only calls when they need something, that relationship where you give 90% and they give 10%. That family member who treats you like a bank or a servant or a therapist, but never once asks how you're doing. You know who they are, and you're still giving to them, still answering, still showing up, because you're afraid that if you stop, you'll be alone. But let me tell you something that's going to change everything. You're already alone. Being surrounded by people who use you is lonelier than being by yourself. You know something? There's a man I heard about who owned a small bakery on the corner of a busy street. Every single morning, before the sun would peek over the rooftops, he would fire up his ovens and bake fresh bread. And here's what made him different. He would take the bread that didn't sell the day before, the loaves that were still perfectly good, still fresh enough to eat, and he would stand outside his shop and give them away, free, to anyone who needed it. Students on their way to school, workers heading to their jobs, old people taking their morning walks. It didn't matter who you were. If you were hungry, he fed you. And people loved him for it. They would smile, they would thank him, they would tell their friends about the kind baker who had a heart of gold. Some mornings, there would be a line of people waiting, not to buy, but to receive. And he gave every morning, without fail, for 3 years. Then one morning, something happened. The baker's supply had an issue. The flour delivery didn't come. For the first time in 3 years, he had no extra bread to give away. So he stood outside his shop that morning, empty-handed. And when the people came, he explained. Simple, honest. I'm sorry, my friends, no flour came today, no bread today. Tomorrow, I'll have bread again. You want to know what happened? The same people who had smiled at him, who had thanked him, who had called him a blessing, they cursed him. They called him selfish. They said he was lying, that he was keeping the bread for paying customers. Some even said he had never cared about them at all, that he was just showing off, trying to look good. One woman actually spat on the ground near his feet and walked away. The baker stood there, confused, hurt, wounded in a place deeper than his body. He had given for 3 years. 3 years of waking up early, of using his own resources, of sharing what he had worked hard to create. And in one morning, one single morning, when he couldn't give, all that kindness, all that generosity meant nothing. Worse than nothing. It had somehow turned into an obligation in their minds. His gift had become their right. His kindness had transformed into their entitlement. Now, before you judge those people too harshly, I want you to understand something that might make you uncomfortable. This is human nature. This is how we're wired. And if you don't understand this principle, you will find yourself standing where that baker stood, wondering how your goodness became your burden, how your generosity became your chain, how your kindness opened the door for people to disrespect you. Here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Anything that costs you nothing has no value. I'm not talking about money only. I'm talking about how the human mind works. When something is always available, always accessible, always given without requirement or boundary or limit, the mind stops seeing it as special. It becomes normal, expected, invisible. Think about the air you breathe right now. It's keeping you alive. Without it, you would die in minutes. But do you think about it? Do you thank it? Do you respect it? No. Why? Because it's always there. It costs you nothing. It requires nothing from you. So your mind dismisses it. Only when you can't breathe, only when someone's choking or drowning, only then do you suddenly realize how valuable air is. This is what happens with kindness that has no boundaries. Your constant availability makes you invisible. Your endless giving makes you common. Your refusal to ever say no makes people forget that saying yes is a choice, a gift, a sacrifice of your time, your energy, your resources, your very life. And here's where it gets deeper. When you give without boundaries, without limits, without ever requiring anything in return, not even respect, not even acknowledgement, you're actually training people, you're teaching them, you're showing them how to treat you. And what are you teaching them? You're teaching them that you have no value. You're teaching them that your time doesn't matter. You're teaching them that they can take and take and take, and you'll still be there, still giving, still available, still saying yes. I've watched this pattern destroy relationships, friendships where one person gives everything and the other just takes. And when the giver finally gets tired, finally says, I need something too, the taker gets angry. How dare you? You've always been there before. What's wrong with you now? Family relationships where one person sacrifices and sacrifices, and the family doesn't even notice until the sacrifice stops. And instead of gratitude for all those years, there's anger for the one time you couldn't give. This is the paradox. The very kindness you thought would build love and respect becomes the reason you're disrespected. The very generosity you thought would create gratitude creates entitlement instead. And you're left confused, hurt, wondering what you did wrong, wondering why being good didn't make people treat you better. But see, you weren't wrong to be kind. You weren't wrong to be generous. You were wrong about one thing. You thought kindness meant having no boundaries. You thought generosity meant giving everything to everyone all the time. You thought love meant never saying no. And that's where the door opened. That's where disrespect walked in. Not because people are evil, though some might be, but because you taught them that disrespecting you has no consequences. You taught them that your boundaries don't exist. You taught them that you'll accept anything. Let me tell you about another man. This one lived in a village where water was scarce. The well was far from the center of town, almost a mile away, down a rocky path that would tear up your feet if you weren't careful. Most people in the village were too old, too young, or too busy with their work to make that journey multiple times a day. So this man, strong and healthy, made it his mission to help. Every morning and every evening he would walk to the well, fill large containers with water and carry them back to the village. He would go house to house, filling people's pots and vessels. He never asked for anything, not money, not food, not even a thank you. Though at first, people gave it freely for 5 years. He did this. 5 years of strong shoulders carrying heavy loads. 5 years of feet walking that rocky path twice a day, sometimes more when someone had a special need. His back began to ache, his knees started to hurt, the cartilage in his shoulders began to wear down. He was still a young man, but his body was aging like someone much older. So one day, he made a simple request. He went to the village council and said, I've served you faithfully. My body is breaking down. I'm not asking for much, just a small contribution from each household, enough to buy some medicine for my pain. Maybe save a little for the future when I can't carry water anymore. You would think this was reasonable. You would think 5 years of free service had earned him at least this small consideration. But the village erupted in anger. How dare he? Who did he think he was? Water was a basic need, and now he wanted to profit from their suffering. They called him greedy. They called him selfish. Some said he had changed, that he wasn't the good man he used to be. One elder stood up in the meeting and said, we never asked you to carry our water, you chose to do it. And now you want us to pay for something we never requested? The water carrier stood there, and for the first time in 5 years, he saw the truth. They had never valued his sacrifice because it had never cost them anything. They had never respected his service because he had never required respect. In their minds, he wasn't generous. He was just there, like the well, like the rain, just part of the landscape, something that existed for their convenience. This is what I need you to understand about human psychology. When you consistently give without requiring anything in return, people don't see sacrifice. They see function. You become a tool, not a person, a resource, not a relationship. And the moment you stop functioning the way they've become accustomed to, they don't feel gratitude for what you've done. They feel betrayed by what you're no longer doing. This is the entitlement disease. And it's more contagious than any virus. It spreads quietly, slowly, invisibly. It starts with appreciation. Someone does something kind and you're genuinely grateful, but they do it again and again and again. And somewhere in the repetition, your brain makes a shift. What was once a gift becomes a pattern. What was once appreciation becomes expectation. What was once extraordinary becomes ordinary. And you don't even realize it's happening. I've seen mothers who gave everything to their children. Every moment, every resource, every ounce of energy. And when those children grew up, they didn't call her blessed. They called her when they needed something. I've seen employees who stayed late every night, who covered for everyone, who never complained. And when promotion time came, they were passed over. Why? Because their extra effort had become the expected standard. It wasn't seen as going beyond anymore. It was just seen as what they do. Here's what you need to understand. Respect requires resistance. Read that again. Respect requires resistance. When everything flows freely, when there's no boundary, no limitation, no point at which you say this far and no further, there's nothing to respect. Respect is what happens when someone encounters your limits and recognizes that your yes is valuable because your no exists. Think about it. Who do you respect more? The person who agrees with everything you say, who's always available whenever you call, who never challenges you, never questions you, never has their own agenda, or the person who has their own mind, their own schedule, their own priorities, and when they choose to give you their time and energy, you know it means something because they could have chosen differently. The people who get walked over in life aren't the weak ones. They're often the strong ones, the capable ones, the ones who can carry the load. But they get walked over because they never put the load down. They never say, I've carried this far enough, your turn. They never establish that their strength is a gift, not a guarantee. Their capacity is a choice, not a requirement. And here's the hard truth that's going to make some of you angry. If people are disrespecting you, if they're taking you for granted, if your kindness has turned into their entitlement, you taught them to do that, not intentionally, not maliciously, but through your actions, through your patterns, through your inability to say no. You showed them that disrespecting you comes with no consequences. You showed them that they can take, and you'll still be there. You showed them that your boundaries are negotiable, or worse, that they don't exist at all. The water carrier learned this lesson too late. His body was already damaged, his spirit was already broken, but he learned and he made a decision. He stopped carrying water for free. Some people paid, some people didn't. Some started carrying their own water and realized how hard it actually was. Some found other solutions. But here's what changed. Those who chose to pay, those who chose to value his service, they treated him differently. They respected him, not because he demanded it with words, but because his actions finally matched his value. There was a master craftsman in a town who made furniture so beautiful that people would travel from distant places just to see his work. Tables that looked like they were carved from single pieces of wood. Chairs that felt like they were holding you even before you sat down. Cabinets with joints so precise you couldn't see where one piece ended and another began. His skill was extraordinary, built over 30 years of practice, failure, learning, and refinement. Young people would come to him wanting to learn. And because he believed in passing on knowledge, because he believed that skills should not die with the craftsman, he would take apprentices. He never charged them, not a single coin. He would teach them everything he knew, feed them lunch while they worked, even give them wood to practice on from his own supply. He saw it as his duty, his contribution to the future. Two young men came to him in the same month, one named Ahmed, the other named Louis, both eager, both claiming they wanted to learn, both promising dedication. The craftsman accepted them both. Every day he would show them techniques that had taken him years to master. How to read the grain of wood, how to sharpen tools to perfect angles, how to measure not just with rulers but with your eyes and hands. Secrets that other craftsmen would charge fortunes to reveal. Ahmed would arrive early, stay late. He would practice the same cut 100 times until it was right. He would ask questions, take notes, treat every piece of scrap wood like it was precious. Louis would show up late, leave early. He would practice once or twice, then sit around talking, looking at his phone, complaining that the work was boring or too hard. When the craftsman corrected him, he would shrug, say, okay, and then make the same mistake again. After 3 months, the craftsman made a decision. He called them both together and said, Ahmed, you will continue to learn from me for free, Luis. If you want to continue, the cost is $50 a week. Luis exploded. What? You never charged before? Ahmed doesn't have to pay. This isn't fair. The craftsman looked at him calmly and said, you're right. It isn't fair. It isn't fair that I give you the same knowledge I give Ahmed when you don't value it the same way. Ahmed pays me with his attention, his effort, his respect. You pay me with nothing. So now, you'll pay with money, or you'll leave. Luis left, angry, feeling cheated. But something interesting happened 2 weeks later. He came back. He apologized. He said he would pay. And from the moment he started paying, everything changed. He arrived on time. He practiced seriously. He stopped wasting material. He asked better questions. Why? Because now it cost him something. Now he had invested. Now he had skin in the game. The money made him see the value that was there all along, but invisible to him when it was. This is the difference between kindness and foolishness. Kindness gives with wisdom. Foolishness gives without discernment. Kindness builds up. Foolishness tears down. Even when it thinks it's helping. True kindness sometimes says no. True kindness sometimes requires something in return. True kindness recognizes that giving someone everything actually robs them of something precious, the dignity of reciprocity, the growth that comes from effort, the respect that comes from investment. You think you're being loving when you give without boundaries, but sometimes you're actually being harmful. You're keeping people dependent. You're preventing them from growing. You're teaching them that life owes them something, that effort is optional, that respect is negotiable. And then you wonder why they don't respect you. They don't respect you because you didn't require it, you didn't teach it, you didn't model it by respecting yourself first. Listen carefully. Self-respect is not selfish. Boundaries are not mean. Saying no is not unloving. These are the lies we tell ourselves to justify our inability to stand firm. We call our weakness kindness and our fear generosity. We're afraid that if we require respect, people will leave. We're afraid that if we say no, people will stop loving us. We're afraid that if we have boundaries, we'll be alone. So we give and give and give, hoping that our generosity will make us indispensable, hoping that our kindness will make us valued, but it does the opposite. Here's what happens when you rebuild respect after it's been lost. It's uncomfortable. The people who are used to taking from you will get angry. They'll call you changed. They'll say you're not the person you used to be. And they're right. You're not. You're better. You're wiser. You're healthier. But they'll resist because you've disrupted their comfort. You've turned off the tap they were used to drinking from without asking. Some will adjust. Some will learn. Some will actually start respecting you for the first time. These are the ones worth keeping. These are the relationships that can become real, reciprocal, balanced. But some will leave. And you have to let them. Because a relationship based on your depletion is not a relationship. It's an extraction. They don't love you. They love what you do for them. And when you stop doing it, their true feelings become clear. The restoration path requires consistency. You can't set a boundary today and abandon it tomorrow. You can't say no once and then feel guilty and say yes the next time. People will test you. They'll push. They'll try the old ways of manipulating you, the old guilt trips, the old expectations. And if you cave, you'll teach them that your boundaries are negotiable. You'll be back where you started, except now it will be worse because they'll know you tried to change and failed. But if you stand firm, if you remain consistent, if you continue to honor yourself even when it's uncomfortable, something beautiful happens. The right people stay. The right relationships deepen. And you'll find something you've been missing. Peace. The peace that comes from knowing you're not being used. The peace that comes from relationships built. The peace that comes from relationships built on mutual value, not one-sided extraction. There was a gardener who inherited a large piece of land. When he first walked through it, he saw potential everywhere, so he began to work. He would wake up every morning, walk through his garden with buckets of water, and water everything equally, every plant, every sprout. Everything that grew got the same amount of water, the same amount of attention, the same amount of care. He believed this was fairness. He believed this was love, equal treatment for all. But something strange started happening. The garden wasn't flourishing the way he expected. In fact, it was becoming chaotic. The weeds were growing faster and stronger than anything else. They were spreading, choking out the flowers, overwhelming the vegetables, taking over the space where fruit trees were trying to establish their roots. And yet, he kept watering everything equally because he thought that's what a good gardener does. One day, an old woman who had been gardening her whole life walked past and saw what he was doing. She stopped and watched him for a while. Then she called out to him, "Young man, why are you feeding the weeds?" He looked at her, confused. "I'm not feeding the weeds. I'm watering my garden. Everything equally, everything fairly." She smiled. The way old people smile when they know something you haven't learned yet, that's your problem. You're watering everything equally. Weeds don't need your help to grow. They're designed to thrive with or without you. But your roses, your tomatoes, your orange trees, they need your intentional care. When you treat the weeds the same as your flowers, you're not being fair. You're being foolish. The weeds will always win because they're stronger, more aggressive, more demanding. You have to choose what you nurture. He thought about her words that night, and the next morning, he changed his approach. He stopped watering everything. He started being selective. He pulled out the weeds. He focused his water, his fertilizer, his time, his energy on the plants that would actually produce fruit, beauty, nourishment. And within weeks, his garden began to transform. The roses bloomed. The vegetables grew strong. The fruit trees started to flourish, not because he loved them more, but because he was wise enough to know that not everything deserves the same investment. This is the final truth about generosity and respect. Your time is not unlimited. Your energy is not infinite. Your resources are not bottomless. You are a human being with limitations. And pretending you don't have them doesn't make you noble. It makes you a liar. You're lying to yourself. And you're lying to the people around you who start to believe you're some kind of machine that can give and give forever without needing anything in return. Real generosity comes from strength, not from obligation. When you give because you feel you have no choice. When you give because you're afraid of what people will think if you don't. When you give because you've always given and you don't know how to stop. That's not generosity. That's bondage. You're a prisoner of other people's expectations. And the worst part is, you're the one who built the prison. But when you give from a place of choice, when you give because you've evaluated the situation and decided this person, this cause, this moment is worth your investment, that's powerful. That's dignified. That's the kind of giving that maintains respect because it's clear that you're choosing to give, not that you're required to give. There's a difference between being a fountain and being a flood. A fountain gives from its supply, controlled, purposeful, beautiful. A flood just destroys everything in its path, including itself. You need to understand something about how people perceive you. The way you treat yourself sets the standard for how others treat you. If you don't value your own time, why should anyone else? If you don't protect your own energy, why should anyone else consider it? If you don't respect your own boundaries, why would anyone else honor them? You are teaching people every single day through your actions what is acceptable and what is not. I've seen people transform their entire lives by making one simple change. They started saying no. Not to everything, not to become selfish or isolated or cruel, but they started recognizing that every yes to someone else's demand was a no to something important in their own life. Every time you say yes when you should say no, you're saying no to your health, your peace, your priorities, your purpose. You can't give what you don't have. And if you're empty because you've poured everything out without ever refilling yourself, you have nothing of value left to give anyway. The people who respect you most will be the ones who see you respect yourself. They'll be the ones who notice when you say no and they don't get angry. They ask, are you okay? What do you need? Those are your people. The ones who get angry when you finally set boundaries. The ones who call you selfish when you finally prioritize yourself. The ones who disappear when the free supply runs out. They were never your people. They were your consumers. And you don't need consumers, you need companions. You need reciprocal relationships. You need people who give as much as they take. Here's what I want you to leave with today. Your value is not determined by how much you give. Your value is inherent. You were born with it. You don't have to earn love by depleting yourself. You don't have to earn respect by exhausting yourself. You don't have to prove your worth by sacrificing your well-being. The right people will value you not because of what you do for them, but because of who you are. And if someone only values you for what you provide, they don't value you at all. They value the service. So be kind. Yes, be generous, absolutely, but be wise, be discerning, be selective about where you plant your seeds because not every soil deserves them. Protect your garden, pull out the weeds, water what matters, and watch how your life transforms when you finally understand that respecting yourself is not the opposite of kindness, it's the foundation of it.